The crack of leather on flesh shattered the quiet frontier air, sharp as a gunshot without a bullet's flight. Dust hung in the sunlit yard like smoke, drifting as if the earth itself recoiled. A young woman, barely 22, stumbled back, arms cradling her swollen belly. Her lips trembled, whispering to the life within, "Hold on, child. Just hold on." Before the cabin door stood her mother-in-law, whip dangling, its rawhide tip quivering like a serpent's tongue. Her weathered face, hollowed by bitterness, seemed more stone than flesh, her eyes devoid of pity. Neighbors gathered, drawn by the commotion, yet rooted in silence, as if the scene bound them in place. The cabin leaned wearily against the prairie sky, its gray wood and rattling shutters bearing witness to the violence. Chickens scratched nervously at the dirt, unsettled by the air's tension. Beyond the rail fence, a boy, no older than 10, whispered to his sister, "Ma says she's near birthing." The girl shushed him, eyes wide, but neither looked away. Children learned cruelty's truth too soon. The whip rose again. The young woman flinched, stumbling against the step, one hand shielding her belly. The mother-in-law's voice cut sharp, "You'll learn respect, girl, even if your child's first cry drowns in yours." A quieter voice broke the moment. A man, 26, lean as a fence post, stepped forward. His boots were worn, his shirt patched, but his posture held a quiet dignity, as if decency was his last unstripped possession. "Ma'am," he said, voice low but firm, "a baby's coming. Don't let the Lord find your hand bloody when it takes its first breath." Shame rippled through the crowd. A gray-bearded preacher cleared his throat, quoting, "Fathers, provoke not your children to wrath, lest they be discouraged." The verse hung heavy, stirring consciences. The mother-in-law's eyes burned, but her hand faltered, the whip drooping. Silence spread, broken only by a mule's shuffle and a distant infant's cry. The rancher moved closer, offering his hand to the woman. Her lip bled, her hair clung damp to her temple, but her dark eyes met his, torn between shame and need. Trembling, she took his hand. He lifted her gently, her belly heavy against his side, and guided her toward the cabin door, each step deliberate. The neighbors watched, some with guilt, others with relief, but none spoke in her defense. Their silence stung like a second lash. Inside, the air cooled, smelling of wood smoke and stale bread. The mother-in-law stood rigid, whip still in hand, a flicker of doubt crossing her stern face. The woman clutched her belly, whispering, "Please, don't let her near the child." The rancher's steady gaze answered without words. He led her deeper into the cabin, away from judging eyes, into a darkness that promised shelter, if not peace. The whip slipped from the older woman's fingers, hitting the dirt with a dull thud. The neighbors shifted, as if waking from a trance. A storm had passed, but thunder lingered on the horizon. Inside, the cabin's dim light held tension, its walls steeped in toil and smoke. The woman sank into a rough-hewn chair, breath uneven, hand pressed to her belly. The rancher moved quietly, setting bread and a tin cup of water before her. His motions were awkward, kindness unfamiliar but earnest. She hesitated, fingers trembling with shame more than hunger, then tore a piece of bread, chewing slowly, as if each bite carried judgment. He leaned against the doorframe, hat in hand, face shadowed. "Eat," he said softly. "Work's heavy enough without an empty stomach." Her cheeks flushed. "Kindness costs dear here. Folks don't offer it without wanting something back." His jaw tightened, eyes tracing the table's grain. "Some costs are worth paying," he murmured. Silence stretched, heavy but not suffocating. Outside, the prairie wind stirred, and the mother-in-law's shadow passed the window, her presence a lingering threat. The woman whispered, "When my husband died, she said I stayed by her mercy. Said I owed her my hands, back, and womb." The rancher saw her frayed dress, worn shoes, calloused palms, marks of labor, not grace. He didn't press her, her scars spoke enough. Children's laughter broke the quiet, two boys peered through the window, then hushed. One called, "Mister," is she okay? The rancher straightened. The Lord watches over mothers and children. She'll be fine. The boys nodded, their innocence a fleeting bomb. Evening fell, light slanting through shutter cracks, painting the room in gold and shadow. The rancher lit a lamp, its glow softening her weary face. She shifted, whispering, if she finds me resting, she'll lash me again. Says work don't wait for babies. He met her eyes. She won't raise her hand tonight. Not while I'm here. Her breath caught, hope fragile. The lamp flickered, casting tall shadows. He said, tomorrow ain't here yet. Tonight's enough. Morning light spilled across the prairie, but judgment pressed harder. At the town well, women whispered, she's no widow worth pity. A burden. In the saloon, men muttered, that rancher's a fool, feeding another man's woman. The preacher heard, his Bible heavy under his arm, praying, Lord, soften their hearts. Yet he hesitated, fearing his flock's wrath. The rancher bore the stairs, working his land until his hands bled, his silence a resolve stronger than words. The woman felt the town's eyes, pulling her shawl tight as if it could shield her from scorn. Children stared, their mothers pulling them away. She carried bread home, whispers trailing, shame, burden, cursed. One evening, the town gathered outside the church, benches creaking under their weight. The mother-in-law stood, whip coiled, voice sharp. The girl brings ruin. That boy keeps her when she should be cast out. The preacher shifted, but the rancher rose, voice steady. I've seen men kill quicker than spit, yet they didn't bear the weight you lay on her. She ain't sinned by carrying life. The crowd stirred, whispers rising. The woman, at the gathering's edge, wept, whispering to her child, someone speaks for us still. Days later, a girl left a soft cloth on the cabin porch, a quiet gift. Inside, the woman found a wooden cradle, plain but sturdy, carved by the rancher's hands. She touched it, tears falling. Maybe the world won't hate us, she whispered. But storm clouds gathered, and peace felt fragile. Thunder rumbled as night fell, the sky heavy with rain. Inside the cabin, the woman's labor began, too early, pain pulling her toward birth. The mother-in-law sat by the hearth, muttering, fool girl can't even do this right. She refused to fetch a midwife. The rancher, soaked from the storm, froze at the sight of her pain. Fear gripped him, but he knelt beside her. You're not alone. I'll help. She clutched his hand, trust outweighing terror. Rain hammered the roof, her cries rising with the thunder. He brought cloths, water, his rough hands steady despite their clumsiness. You're stronger than the pain, he whispered. The Lord walks with you. A knock came, 2 children, drenched, holding a blanket. Mama says every baby deserves something soft, the girl said. The rancher took it, voice thick. That's the truest gospel I've heard. The woman wept, clutching the blanket. Hours passed, her cries marking time. She whispered, I can't, but he urged, you can. Every breath brings you closer. Near dawn, the storm eased, and a final cry broke the silence, a newborn's wail, fragile but fierce. He wrapped the child in the blanket, laying it in her arms. She smiled, weary but radiant, whispering, you're born into mercy. The mother-in-law stepped forward, whip in hand, eyes cold. The rancher stood between her and the cradle. No more, he said. Raise that hand, and you raise it against us both. Her arm faltered, the whip falling. The preacher stepped forward, quoting, Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. The baby whimpered, and the woman smoothed the blanket, whispering, Mercy will guard you. Neighbors drifted away, their judgment shaken. The rancher laid the whip in the dirt outside, its venom spent. Morning sun gilded the cradle, the rough boards, the faces within. No vows were spoken, but gratitude bound them. The prairie stretched endless, yet something had shifted, a seed of mercy planted in hardened soil. The child's cry echoed, and with it, a dawn whispering of a home built not by power, but by steadfast kindness carried through the night.